Welcome to episode 127 of Outside the Circle, a podcast dedicated to new and upcoming country artists, musicians, and songwriters. Today's guest will be John Michael Ferrari. We'll get to him in a little bit, but first, I'm Ronnie, and here's Brian.
Yeah, what's happening, man? What's happening, everyone? Welcome back. We are week 2 of coming back out of it. Man, we had a little bit of like, I don't know, rusty bones coming out of that for that last episode, and we apologize for everybody. Yeah, we had a little issue with posting that one, so hopefully people got onto it early enough and still were able to enjoy Amy Shepherd's interview because it was great.
Yeah, it was. I think overall, I had to reteach myself how to speak in full sentences again, and then the uploads, which I guess not that any of it matters to anybody listening, but I guess it actually was fine. It just appeared incorrect. I still don't understand what actually happened.
Yeah, I don't know, man, because I click onto it to listen to it back, like in my truck, just to kind of make sure, like that morning, and I only got 2 minutes. So there was definitely something junked up with it, and but it's fixed now. And Jamie, my wife, she asked me, she's like, "So what happened to it?" I'm like, "I'm gonna get really geeky, but it has a lot to do with bit rate." And she's like, "Whatever, it's working now, so we're good."
Yeah, I saw the having shared access to the emails. There was a lot of 3-letter codes and words that I did not understand, but I'm glad it got figured out, and glad people were able to listen to the Amy Shepherd interview. It was a great one to release back, and definitely got the blood flowing, got me pumped up to keep moving here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was good. And like you said, I'm glad that it's back. And going into this week's interview, I was in diaper duty, so we are in the we are in my diaper duty era.
Yes, it only took 2 episodes back to get a Taylor Swift reference, so I'm on board with that. But yeah, so I guess kind of just to throw that caveat out there, that the next handful of weeks, you're pretty much going to hear my voice for the most part when it comes to the interviews. Maybe once we kind of start rolling again, we'll be able to kind of mix them in a little bit to get people not sick of hearing me. Thankfully, in the interviews, I don't sound like how I sound now. I'm just getting over a cold myself. I feel like you came out of it last week, and now here I am in it this week. But so at least in the interviews, I won't sound so terrible.
No, man, I'm looking forward to it, and let's get to it.
All right, everyone. We're here today with singer-songwriter John Michael Ferrari. Welcome to Outside the Circle, John. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us on the show. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to know you a little bit. You kind of came across our desk probably about a month ago now, and this is definitely one I've been waiting on. So let's jump in. Let's get to know you and get to know your music, and yeah, we'll take it from there. So we always like to start with the very cliche, kind of tell us about your introduction to music, whether it be childhood, growing up, where you grew up, just how music came to be for you.
Well, I grew up in San Francisco when I was very young, and I used to listen to the radio all the time. I knew every song on the radio. The 50s and the 60s, that's when I started listening to music. And I finally got a guitar. My stepdad took me down to Market Street. We went to a pawn shop, and we found a guitar there, and I brought it home. And when I got it home, I didn't know exactly which way to hold the guitar. Should I hold it left-handed? Should I hold it right-handed? And I thought, I'll look at a picture of Elvis. However he's holding the guitar, that's how I'm going to hold the guitar. As it turned out, I was left-handed, but I play right-handed. So, lucky he wasn't left-handed. Yeah. And that was my beginning of playing music, and I've always loved music. I love listening to the radio, the harmonies and the doo-wops. All of that stuff was a great influence on my life.
Nice. So, you mentioned the radio and all that. Do you have any other musicians in family, or were you kind of the first one to really gravitate towards wanting to play an instrument?
Nobody in my family, immediate family, but my cousin played drums. Now he played drums in a big band kind of thing, and he was an inspiration for me because he would always practice his drums, and I'd watch him on stage smiling and playing the drums and everything. So he was the only other person, and we played it together a few times for a couple of New Year's parties, him and I. So that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure San Francisco, being the city that it is, I'm sure there is quite a big music scene and influence that came through town and even originated from San Francisco as well.
Yeah, it was an exciting time to grow up in San Francisco. It was a beautiful, beautiful city. I lived right on California and Polk. If anybody knows anything about San Francisco, it's where the trolley car comes down every day, up and down, ringing the bell. And at nighttime, you could hear the foghorn all the way from Alcatraz.
Yeah. Yeah. I've San Francisco. I've never been. I lived in Los Angeles for a couple of years, but I've always wanted to visit San Francisco, and I lived in Pittsburgh as well for a few years, and they have those, not the trolley cars in the same sense, but they have the those like rail cars that go up and down the mountain. So I don't know. I'm fascinated by all that like technology and just the way that before cell phones and before all these cars, and I'm a big history guy, so I enjoy all that kind of stuff.
It's a funny thing. See, when we were kids, when I was a kid, I would leave the house early in the morning. I would go out. I'd be gone all day. Never once did I ever think about calling home, telling my parents where I was. I was usually at Skateland at the beach. They call it Playland at the beach, roller skating. I would be there all day, and I would just come home at night. And I don't remember my parents ever asking me, where you been? Yeah. Never remember even calling. I mean, we didn't have a cell phone or anything. I don't even know if I knew the phone number, but when I was a kid, I was out and about all the time doing things.
Yeah. I always like to say that I'm lucky enough to have been kind of I had the tail end of that childhood where my parents didn't care, and I would show up when the street light came on. But then I also was young enough to get the first cell phone and so I feel like I transitioned well, but yeah, no, it's
And I had a little transistor radio, a little gray transistor radio. Wanted to turn it over and it says "Made in Japan," and I carried that everywhere I went. It was a portable, and I'd listen to Del Shannon, Roy Orbison, and all the great. Of course, those weren't oldies back then; they were newies.
Yeah. So let's jump into that then. So you mentioned getting the guitar from the pawn shop, being so into the radio and diving into the music scene, especially. When did you know, or kind of take me through that shift in when you were going to turn music into a career and something that you focus on?
I pretty much knew at that age that this is what I wanted to do. And when I got older, I moved up to Carson City, Reno and Carson City. I went to high school up there, and I joined some a local band, and we learned how to play all the different songs, Beatles songs, and every song that was popular. We played it as a band. Now, that was just before I went into the Army, when I was in high school. When I went to the high school, when I went into the service, I brought my guitar with me. I don't know how I did that, but I ended up with a guitar in Vietnam. I don't know how that happened. But I had one, and I would play for everybody. I'd play for the troops. I'd play for the officers' club occasionally. And when I got out of the service, that was my saving grace. That was the only thing that I really knew how to do. And I could get a job playing in little nightclubs, playing all over California. I moved back to a place called Walnut Creek in the Bay Area and Concord. And there were a lot of clubs. Almost every club had a guitar player in the corner playing Jim Croce songs or Cat Stevens songs, all those different songs. And that's how I started to make a living. And that's how I started to create my own show, because you would play at one club for like 6 weeks, and then you'd move on to another club in the area, and you played there for 6 weeks. You just moved a circle. And so you were learning your craft and getting paid for it at the same time. And I think I was making about $35, $40 a night. That was a lot of money, because my rent was only $65 a month, so that was good. And unfortunately, they don't have that today for the young people to go out and play clubs and get paid for it. And that's why many people from our generation, we cultivated our craft and became proficient at what we do. Now, learning how to play songs and understanding the structure of songs that other people wrote that were hits, it really seeped into my ability to write songs, because I knew how to structure songs. Today, people go to school and they pay a lot of money to learn how to write songs and structure songs. It's very expensive. But a good way to learn how to write good songs is to learn how to play other people's songs first. If you play their songs, you understand what they're doing. Then you can have a good grasp on what is good structure for your own songs.
Yeah, I feel like that's almost kind of true for most things in life, even like and there's nothing wrong with going to school and learning, and, doing all that. But really being hands-on and you could read the book and read the, theory on root notes and fifths, but then to like sit there and feel it in your hands and do it. I feel like that is even a little lost. You mentioned how there's, not really many places for young artists now to get out and work on their craft. They're not even so much doing that anymore. Maybe that's a product of the way that technology has gone, or it's just a product of not really understanding that it is important to study and get hands-on.
Yeah, and the best way is to learn how to play other people's songs, learn their structure, learn their format, learn where their hooks are, the title of the song, where does it come in the chorus, and you learn that not out of a book. Well, you can learn it out of a book, but you learn it by playing other people's songs. And that's the best way to do it. And have a variety of music, not just one genre, but different genres of music, because they're structured a little bit different, each one. And it gives you a good understanding if you can do that. And I work with young people, and I work with young songwriters, and I teach them how to structure songs, put songs together.
Yeah. So I do want to jump into songwriting, but before we get there, I kind of want to backtrack a second. So I actually just learned not that long ago, and then it's you brought up joining the army and going to Vietnam. Are you familiar with Chicky Donahue? They just made a movie about him about a year ago. The Greatest Beer Run, I think it was called, about the gentleman from New York who literally took a backpack of beer from New York and hopped on a ship to Vietnam and just visited all his buddies handing out beer.
No.
Well, definitely check it out. It's a very interesting story, but I learned like a month ago that he's like a great uncle of mine. So I thought that was pretty interesting to me. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about songwriting. We always like to ask kind of like what that process looks like for you. And, you mentioned structure and how to structure songs. So, whether it's yourself or working with other artists, kind of take us through that process, what that looks like for you, what you like to do to bring these songs to life.
Well, I started writing when I was out of the service, and I started writing when I was in high school, but I never took it seriously because I wasn't in that atmosphere surrounded by people who were actually doing that. So for me, the idea of me being on the radio seems so far away. Like that's for other people. That's not for me. You know, I'm just a guitar player and I sing other people's songs. And I did that and I made a living, a nice living doing that, playing with bands and performing as a solo artist in all these little clubs. I did that for many, many years. And then I got to a point to where I didn't want to do it anymore. And I came home and I said, I'm done with touring. I'm done with music. And I literally stopped playing music for several years. And I took up photography, and that was fun. And then Pepper J came to me and she said one day, she said, you know, you ought to think about writing some more of your songs. And I thought about it, and it seemed a little bit more realistic that, you know, maybe we could do something with that, because she's very good at business and very good at getting things out there. So I started to write some songs, and she thought they were really good, and they were okay. I thought they were okay. But when I started writing them, I really did understand the structure and everything. So every song I started to write was within that format, that structure. And then one day she said, we're going to go to Nashville and we're going to record all these songs, our first album. And we did. We went to Nashville and we recorded our first album at Larry Beard Studios, Larry Beard Music Group in Nashville. Very good recording studio, excellent musicians, some of the best in Nashville.
Yeah.
And when we got home, of course, the advice that they gave us is that, you know, instead of trying to pitch our songs to another artist, my songs were unique enough that I should just do it myself. And within 2 months, we had our first song hitting the charts. And we were at the very bottom. It was like 199 at the very bottom of the chart. You know, you have Taylor Swift and everybody else was at the top. We were so excited, you know.
Oh, yeah.
We thought, even if it doesn't go any higher than 199, we hit the charts. We're on the charts. And each week the song kept moving up, and moving up. And a lot of it had to do with our session leader at the Nashville recording studio. He said, John, he says, your song, this particular song, has an extra verse. It's out of the format. They won't play it on the radio if you have the extra verse. And I love that verse, but we took it out because we wanted to have radio format.
Yeah.
And because we did that, that song got all the way to #2 on the charts. Now, we were lucky because all of my songs are written in radio format structure. So we've had many of our songs hit the charts because of that.
Yeah.
And that's how important it is. If anybody's going to start writing songs, they have to understand, what is their goal? Is it they want to get commercial radio play, or do they just want to play for friends? Or, you know, they just want to make recordings? And, you know, they have to know what they want. We knew specifically that our goal was to get on the radio. So all of our songs, most of our songs, were written in radio format. And that's why we've had such wonderful success with our songs.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of structure myself. So I could totally relate to sitting down and kind of taking, you know, the radio format and making sure that, you know, I'm within boundaries. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Do you ever find it hard maybe, or maybe a little annoying every so often to like stay within that format? Or do you just, or are you just that dialed in the way that you write for yourself that it's easier, I guess, being that structured?
I can write out of that format, and when I do it purposely.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it for a reason. I'm doing it because I think this is something I think the fans would enjoy, that if they buy the CD, something different. Well, like one of my songs is 6.5 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's called Peggy Sue's. It's a story song. I knew that wasn't radio format, but as it turned out, it started getting radio play anyway. But I write songs out of format. I do it purposely. But, you know, so I do it for that reason. But most of the time, it's not easy to write a good song in a radio format structure because it has to be simple. It has to have a certain motif where it's repeated over and over again. It's a simple song, but it's not easy to do.
Right.
So it is a crafty thing to do, and it's a challenge.
Yeah.
But the results are, I wanted to get radio play. That's what we want, and that's what we've gotten.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important to have your goals and
Yeah.
work towards them. And that's exactly what you're doing. So I kind of want to go back to Nashville, going the first time, like going to record for the first time in Nashville. You know, you're in the Bay Area, you're writing songs. You know, you've said so yourself, like, you know, I'm just writing songs here and playing, you know, these residencies, at these clubs. Was there like a bit of a shock going into Nashville and seeing the recording side of it? Like how did that process go for you the first time being in a studio of that caliber?
Well, it was exciting, but I was already starting to use Pro Tools and Logic in my own home studio, so I understood somewhat the process of recording and some understanding of mixing. But when you get to Nashville and you go in the studio and you're working with top musicians, now we would go in there with an idea of what we wanted. We'd have our own demo. We'd bring it in there and play it for them. We'd tell them what we would like to have incorporated in the song. And here's the spaces that we're going to leave open for the musicians to self-produce, because that's a very important part, is the musicians to self-produce what they're doing. And you have to be organized. And Pepper J is very organized when we go in there. And anybody's going to do that. You have to have a good producer. You don't go in without a producer. It takes a lot of pressure off you because, you know, when I want to make changes, I tell Pepper, and then Pepper talks to the line producer, and then they talk to the musicians. But you organize, it goes fast. It's an amazing process. You're with the top musicians and it raises your game. And, you know, once you get into the studio and you hear the quality of the production, when you get out of the studio and other people play their recordings, you can tell immediately where the production level of their recordings and what we've done and what all the major artists do. You know, if you're going to compete, your production has got to be as good as the best people out there. Who's ever a number one, Taylor Swift or all those people, whatever production quality you have to have in your recordings. If you don't have that, that's another thing. You're not going to get the radio play.
Yeah. I feel like, and maybe I'm totally off base on this, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like maybe technology wise, getting that's, I don't want to say sound, but getting that production quality may be easier now. However, without the right producers and without the right audio engineers and the guys and girls in the studios, it doesn't matter how good the computer is going to make it sound. The music still has to hold up. And yeah, I feel like technology has been such a weird, like.
Well, when you're actually recording and you're laying down tracks, you're tracking your first day with everybody, and you hear it through the headset, nothing's mixed. Yeah. I mean, it's just everything's raw, and there's very little there, so it's kind of tricky. It sounds good, sounds everything, but the magic is your mixing engineer. That's where it all happens. Yeah. That's where it brings life to whatever you're doing. And if you don't have a good understanding and knowledge of how to use that equipment, how to use those compressors and the EQs and all those different things that they use, because that takes years. That takes years of knowledge. And if you only have a little understanding of it, you're missing out. You need to take it to an engineer who really understands what today's mixes sound like. And it was a shock to me because when they started mixing it, I was thinking, oh, I would have mixed it like the old days, you know. I was going with the old sound. No, this is the new sound. This is how it goes today. And we went with that. And luckily, because our songs were more current, it sounded more popular, what's happening there. And all these little things, you know, help lift that song to, it goes higher and higher on the charts. And people have respect for what we do because of the quality, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish Brian was here, my co-host producer. He's an audio engineer by trade, so he would be all over this conversation. He loves talking shop, and
Yeah, there's a lot. The engineer that you have is the last person before it goes out. I mean, if a mix can do so much for you or against you, and you know, sometimes we get home and we'll bring up the thing on the board. We love the mix, but we might want to change a different thing. I may, it's like, oh, you know, I want a different sound right here, or I may add something and record it into Pro Tools. I may put a guitar part in there or something, and then we'll send it back to the engineer and say, if my guitar part is not adequate enough, then have one of the musicians play it there. And as it turned out, they say, no, it's good enough what you're doing. You know, and but I never try to mix it myself. I'll mix a demo, but I don't have the ears or the technology to be a mixing engineer.
Oh yeah, that's beyond me. That is not for me. All right, so we're talking about songwriting and you know, getting these songs formatted and out on the radio and all of that. This sounds like it's a pretty good time to take our break, put the song on we're going to play for you, and then we'll come back and talk about it. So yeah, without further ado, let's put on your single "Soldier's Prayer."
60 years went rolling by. It was here we said goodbye. The war was brewing, it was extreme. We were only teens. I knew the day I died, all alone, my brand new bride. Our favorite song would be a sign I'd be back in time. So raise a flag with pride and grace. I seen the pain on a soldier's face. Bring me home, both sides say I'm a soldier of the USA. You weren't alone all these years. Seen you cry, I know your tears. You raised our child and a family, all without me. You've done well with your life, lots of friends by your side. I heard a nightly secret prayer, I was always there. So raise our flag with pride and grace. I seen the pain on a soldier's face. Bring me home, both sides say I'm a soldier of the USA. Now it's time, my lovely wife, to bring you home. Say goodnight. Close your eyes to our favorite song. Can you see me now? Can you see me now? One day we'll come back in time for those we leave behind. But for now, we'll watch them grow. Welcome home. welcome home. Welcome home.
All right, so let's talk about Soldier's Prayer. First and foremost, what was the inspiration behind that song, writing it, getting out there, and, the importance of it being out in the world for you?
Oh, I don't know. What was the inspiration of that song? I wasn't really sure. I mean, there's a lot of experiences that I've had because I've written other songs about the military, but I'm not sure what particularly sparked that one. But when I got a hold of it, I was playing around with different ideas, and Pepper mentioned to me, she said, "Oh, I like that. Why don't you finish that?" And but I didn't know where I was going to go with it. And a lot of things came to mind. Being in combat is a strange, unnatural thing because you see the pain and the torture that people go through. And I recall going to Vietnam, and on the first couple of days we were there, we were sent out to the field, and many of the young men that I went over with died within the first few days because of a major firefight. And I wrote a song called Dust Off from that experience where the helicopter came in and picked up the wounded and the dead. And that got a lot of play after writing that song. But more than that, I thought about all the young men that were newly wedded before they went over there, because a lot of young men wanted to marry their girlfriends before they went into the service.
Yeah.
And I thought about some of them and their story of, leaving their brides at home and going off to war and leaving their brides with a child. They're going to have a child. And then they get the news that her husband was killed in action, and how she has to raise her child, without him. And so I got the concept of, here's a young man who's talking about looking after his wife after he's dead. The song's about a soldier who died. Mm-hmm. He's talking about, you raised our family, our child, all without me. You've made a success of your life, and all without me. And that was the idea of the song. And within the song, there's a line that goes, I've seen the pain on a soldier's face. How's that go? I wave my flag with pride and grace. I'm a soldier of the USA. It's a strange thing because, I say, both sides say, bring me home safely. Because, many times you don't think of your enemy, that when they go to war, they have families, they have children, and they want to go home to their families and their children as well as we do. So that's what in the song I talk about that, both sides say, bring me home safely. And I've seen the pain on a soldier's face, not only on our soldiers, but, when ARVN soldiers and we would capture the Viet Cong, we'd put them in a huddle, a little group. And you would stand there and guard them. And you look at them and you can see the pain and the fear that they have because they don't know what's going to happen to them. We have a thing called the Geneva Convention that we're supposed to abide by certain rules. Unfortunately, they don't do that today. But we tried as American soldiers to abide by that law, but we gave them the dignity and not torture them, although they did get tortured sometimes. And we wanted the same for our side. When our side gets captured, by the Viet Cong, and they weren't as graceful with that. They didn't follow the guidance of the Geneva Convention as much. But all that was kind of in the song. And so he watches his bride grow to be an old lady, and then she dies, and then he comes for her, and she becomes young again. And they're together, and he tells her, but we'll come back in time for our kids when they get old and they die. And I got that idea from a movie called The Ghost of Mrs. Muir. Have you ever seen that movie?
It sounds familiar. Yeah.
It's about an old sea captain who lives in a house. And he always scares everybody. He doesn't want people to live there. And they always end up moving out. But this young lady with her child comes into the house, and she's not frightened by him. And they have he's a ghost. And they have this awkward relationship. He's trying to scare her. Get out of my house. This is my house. She says, no, this is my house now. She can actually talk to the ghost. Yeah. And then they reestablish a relationship. And they fall in love. But he realizes that he's a ghost. He can't have a relationship. So he decides to leave her. And as he leaves her, he watches over her over the years until she becomes an old lady, and she dies sitting in a chair, and he comes back for her. Yeah. And when he reaches out for her, she becomes a young woman again. That's kind of, all that went into my story of Soldier's Prayer. If you listen to it, that's kind of all that wrapped up in that one song.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I absolutely love this song. I'm a huge, so whenever we talk on here, Brian always talks about the production side of things, and I always focus on the song, the lyrics, the meanings, the just everything behind it. And I absolutely love this song. I follow the story so well. There's something you kind of said before that kind of a little off topic, but like for what I'm going to say, but music, and this is going to be, stay with me because this is going to be a very far reach, but music is universal, right? Like the sounds, the feels, the emotions that you can get from music is universal. Listening to you talk about being in Vietnam and just kind of different scenarios and situations, you had that language barrier, but emotion is universal. So you had your fears and your our side versus their side, but it's still the same emotions. And I think that's something that is pretty lost a lot of the time when talking, especially, today's, we could go in a rabbit hole of today's climate of politics, whatever, but like no matter what, we're all human and relate to emotion and music in such inspiring ways that I feel like you describing this song and what it means and how you came to be with it really gives it a whole new meaning to me from just listening to it. Now I'm excited to go back and listen again and kind of put myself in the story you were telling. And I love this song. I mean, that's great song.
Well, music is a universal language. When I was in Vietnam, they have a lot of when you go into Saigon and sometimes out in the field they would have bands. The Vietnamese they put bands together, and the songs they did were all American songs. Love Potion Number 9, that was a big one. Love Potion Number 9. But they would sing American songs, and that was the connection. And even today, you could go anywhere in the world, and if you have a guitar, even if they don't speak your language, you start to sing a Beatles song, they'll sing along with you. They'll know the song. That's the world language is music.
Yeah.
You may be enemies, but you'll sing the same song.
Right. Yeah.
Same harmony. You do, do the harmony parts. That's a funny thing.
Yeah, it really is. It's so cool what music can accomplish in just not even just everyday life, but it's just such a big part of the world. It's crazy. Like, especially like the Beatles, everybody knows the Beatles, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Soldier's Prayer, released in 2023, so at the end of last year here. Since then, you followed up with your album "I Keep Dreaming." On top of that, not to mention just a large collection of singles, an EP, two albums since 2022. So definitely been keeping yourself busy. How has the response been to this momentum of consistently getting music out there, and especially being on the hitting the radio and all of that? How's that response been for you?
It's been amazing because of the awards that I've garnished over the few years for my songs, for our production, and for Pepper J's production. It's amazing, that there's two tiers of how the music business works. There is Billboard, and that's where all the major stars. Now that's a closed circuit. That's owned by all the big record companies. That's not for the independents.
Yeah.
The independents and the majors are two different things. To break into the majors like that, you have to be signed to a label. Mm-hmm. They guard all that. You don't get in, the gates without going through them.
Yeah.
But on the independents, where a lot of the people are going now, even established musicians who are no longer signed with labels are going independent. A lot of them. Yeah. And we're doing very well with the independent market with all of our songs where they're being played all over the world. Pepper works very hard at doing that because it does take a lot of work. She's on the computer from early in the morning to late at night, talking to people, making things, connecting with people, talking to DJs all over the world, making these contacts. It takes a lot. Yeah. And it's hard for a musician to do what he's doing, and to do that, you have to have a good partner. And, that's why Pepper J and I work well together. She handles all that, but she also helps me with songwriting. When I'm writing songs, like Soldier's Prayer. Now, she kept pushing me on that. She says, you got to record that song. I was still working on it the day we went into the studio. I said, I still don't know what verses I'm going to use here. She puts it in order. Here, do it like this, like that, So it was at the last moment. She said, is it going to work? I don't know. She said, but she has faith in that. Yeah. We're doing very well. We're very fortunate. We're hitting the top of the independent, all the charts and things like that. And we get good radio play. Good radio play.
Good. Yeah. And you mentioned, the nominations and awards. I wanted to bring up the two in particular: Radio Artist of the Year for 2023 Nashville Music Awards, and Outstanding Male Singer-Songwriter for Nashville Music Foundation 2022, I believe. So last year. Yeah. So I guess kind of in that same breath, with receiving that recognition, I'm assuming it's, it keeps lighting that fire for you, and it feels like you're doing something right, and I'm sure it's helping push along and continue to keep releasing and all that. Yeah.
Well, we found our niche, and we're kind of staying with that. But as anything, you have a run, and the run may last 4 or 5 years or whatever it is, and then everything changes. And you have a choice. You can change with it. You watch the Beatles, they kind of changed, morphed into something different, because of the way the music industry. And some people don't change. They just stick with what they have. So I think we're going to we'll grow with whatever's happening, because we're always interested in trying to accomplishing something new, something different. I have an idea for the next album. In fact, we recorded 2 songs, which were different from all the other songs. It's kind of a blues. It's not a country. It's just kind of a blues song. What was the other one we did? Oh, yeah. And a typical country, like a 3-chord progression, really easy country song. Those were the last 2 we recorded this last time in Nashville. But we'll see where it goes. As an artist, you always want to grow and see what you come up with. Move, kind of change with the times a little bit. But I don't try to be like anybody else. Our music isn't like anybody else's music. I really have an idea of what I like, my influences, and I put it into that, my arrangements. And the musicians, when we go to Nashville, they hear that and they compliment. Because when you go in there, they are 100, 200% in your corner. They want to do the best they can to make you happy, to give you the product you want. There's no ego. They're there to help you.
Yeah. No,
And another thing, it's very expensive as an independent artist. You're going to spend a lot of money, but if you do it well, your returns are matchable to what you put in. And if you want a chance in this business, you're going to have to invest in yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's it, right? It's your authenticity. You don't. Nobody else is going to sound like you, so why should you sound like somebody else? Is kind of where my thought always is when it comes to anything creative. When it's you, that authenticity is so much stronger than you could write the typical country song in Nashville and hand it to one of 50 artists and they could all go out and record it. But it's not a John Michael Ferrari song. You know what I mean? Like who you are, or people know who you are by listening because of that authenticity, and that's important.
Yeah, thank you. And I write for me. I write for what I want, and I put in the chords. Because sometimes they hear, those major sevenths and those ninths you're putting in there, they're not really country. I get that sometimes, but there's always usually a slide guitar in there. So that's an interesting thing. Now we're on the country charts and pop charts, and some of my songs aren't really country songs, but the fact that it has a slide guitar in there, they flow into the country genre, and we get country play because of that, and also because we do all of our stuff in Nashville, so they kind of view me as a pop country artist. Yeah. It's
I feel like these days though, like genres are so blurred that you kind of, which is a good thing. Obviously, like we want the going back to structure of like songwriting. You want the structure of what a genre is or isn't. But I love how open things have become, how like you said, you could be writing a pop song with a steel guitar, next thing you know it's on country #1, and it's such a inviting, I guess, environment that things are so blurred now, and it's nice.
But some of my songs are really country. I mean, when you play it, like that's a country song, but some of them aren't. But they still get country play. I think one song now is "One Heck of a Girl," and that's hitting both country and pop charts. And I don't think there's a slide guitar in that one. But I've already established myself, so when they see my name, they go, "Oh yeah, he's a country singer." So they just take whatever's there and they play it.
Well, so you mentioned "One Heck of a Girl," and I mentioned I Keep Dreaming, the album that just came out as well. Anything else? I know you mentioned you started recording for maybe the next project here. Anything you got coming on down the line that you want to touch on, promote a little bit, if there's anything coming up soon for you?
Well, we have a lot of performances coming up, and if you go to johnmichaelferrari.com, you can see what our schedule is. We just got back from Nashville doing a Smoky Mountain tour in Tennessee. If you go to johnmichaelferrari.com, you can kind of see what's coming up for us. But we live in Pahrump, Nevada, right outside of Las Vegas, and on a beautiful ranch. We like being here. It's serene and peaceful, and it's nice. We got animals. We got cats, dogs, chickens, goats, all kinds of things. Turtles, or what do you call them? Tortoises. But yeah, it's quiet out here, so it's really nice. It's a good place to write songs. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're close enough to Las Vegas that there's I'm sure you play some venues close to town.
We do, yeah.
No, it's a good. I have a friend whose family, his parents live in is it Hendersonville? Henderson?
Beautiful area, Henderson. Yes.
Yeah, he's got a couple of parents, or my friend's parents live out there, and such a beautiful area that they're in, and it's a great area there.
Well, we're building a new stadium out here. I think who's coming out here? Baseball.
The
Oakland
baseball,
A's
yeah.
coming out here. So we have the Raiders and the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a team. We've got Garth Brooks out here.
Yeah, he's doing.
I think he's got a residency out here now.
Yeah.
So we have all the bigger major people out here.
Yeah. And I personally am a diehard hockey fan, so I was very excited to see the Golden Knights end up there. But that's on my bucket list to get out there to see a game. So if I'll make it a point to come out when you're playing, and I'll go check out a game.
Good.
Check out some shows for you, and it's
let us know when you come.
yeah. But yeah, other than that, so you mentioned your website, johnmichaelferrari.com. I hope everybody enjoys this interview and follows along. Anybody listening, definitely go check out I Keep Dreaming, the new album. But yeah, John, I can't thank you enough for taking time and chatting with me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing what comes next for you.
Terrific. Well, keep in touch with us.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so that was Ronnie's interview with John Michael Ferrari. Hey, man, that was cool. And I really liked the idea of that. You guys talked about I've kind of said it a lot, how music is that international language. And, I love his little twist on it where, the language is the barrier, not the music.
Yeah. I thought that was a really interesting, I guess, point or perspective, I guess is the right word there. For him to, for better or worse, having traveled around the world a little bit, he said, as long as you have a guitar, people know who the Beatles are. People know these quote unquote American songs and the English speaking songs, I guess we could say. The Beatles are not quite American, but these English speaking songs. But yeah, that language barrier where emotion is universal, and that was such a cool little phrase to kind of get out of that when we were especially talking about Soldier's Prayer and the single that we heard in the interview.
Yeah, no, that was a great song, a touching song for one. We are in Olympics week, so it's good to feel a little patriotic during that one.
Yes. Yeah. I guess it's kind of good timing on that, right? So we got we're well in the throes of the Olympics here. So I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with John Michael, and we had a good chat both on and off camera, kind of about his story, and I think for the most part, we caught a lot of his essence in the interview, and he's got some stories to tell, and I for one like what I'm hearing and like the stories that he's telling and how he's telling them.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive more into it. This was my first taste of it. So definitely, I'm a bit of a history buff, and that type of that time in American history is quite rough, we'll say. But I'll definitely want to hear more from him and dive more into his story. But for right now, we'd love to thank John Michael Ferrari for coming on Outside the Circle. Be sure to go and check out his social media and his music listening platforms. We'll leave you today with another track from John Michael Ferrari, Music With You.
across the streets. You've come tonight to hear me sing. You might have heard my song on the radio. I was pleased to hear them play it too, about a girl I once knew, the brightest light from the nearest star. Well, driving my car, I've come to music with you. Share the light, harmony with me tonight. Hear applause, feel the glow. Sing along, enjoy the show. It's a dream come true.
It's a dream come true.
I've come to music with you. I love the nights we treasure in. We open our hearts and love comes in. A stranger is kind. Don't it blow your mind? Oh, the promises we never make, all the ones our heart most like to take. The brightest light from the nearest star. That's what you are. I've come to music with you. Share the light, harmony with me tonight. Hear applause, feel the glow. Sing along, enjoy the show. It's a dream come true.
It's a dream come true.
I've come to music with you. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, it's true. Oh, it's a swell of a night, like a Saturday night. The place is packed. Just follow the noise. The sound of joy is where it's at. It's my dream come true. I want the music with you. Share the light, harmony with me tonight. Hear applause, feel the glow. Sing along, enjoy the show. It's a dream come true.
It's a dream come true.
I've come to music with you. It's my dream come true. I've come to music with you.